Hello and welcome back to Education on Fire. I hope you're all well. It's here in the UK, it's like 30 something degrees. Many of the schools have closed down. I know Miss B's been in a position where the nursery is part of the school there, which has been closed as well. In my studio here, it must be something like 50 degrees with the windows shut and all the lights on and everything. So we're going to keep this brief and pointed and with a real focus on what we want to be able to share with everybody. But appreciate that so many people around the country are going to be sort of in the midst of picking up children, moving people around and looking after themselves. So I really appreciate you being here. If you do have anything you want to share, anything you want to ask in the comments, just put it in there. We can bring those up as well. But just wanted to have this opportunity to talk. Obviously, Education on Fire is about child-centered idea of learning. I think the more and more I have conversations on the show, early years, the earlier we understand what it is and how we're able to support children in those most formative times are really, really special. And I think today we have that opportunity to kind of not understand how that works, but how the provisions that are out there have really got that focus to be able to really support. So let's bring on our guest today, and she can explain everything that we need to know about those early years settings and being so supportive. So, Ms. Meath, yes, thank you so much indeed for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time today in this amazing heat wave that we're having.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here. I'd basically like to introduce myself. I'm Shabnum Bi, the founder of Early Nurture Preschool. The Early Nurture Preschool was launched in December 2022 in the Wybrook community of Lascelles, situated in the West Midlands. My endeavour was I wasn't just opening another early years setting. I was redefining what early childhood should look like. The preschool was born with a clear vision where all children from all ethnicities and backgrounds can achieve and thrive academically and socially and emotionally. Drawing on from years of experience, I recognised that there was a gap in the market. I recognised that the gap in the market was around early interventions and early identification. And that particularly became a focus of mine, and that became a vision that we wanted to launch around inclusion. And my ultimate goal was to create a supportive environment where all children, including those with SEND needs, were identified at an earlier stage of their development. And this was a vision that meant I will endeavour this within my project, determined and planned a structure and a vision with a clear impact. And that clear impact has now paid off in 2025, receiving our most recent Ofsted inspection in March, receiving an outstanding grade, and we've maintained that over the years.
And tell me a little bit about the sense of that early intervention, because I'm sure there are many parents and many people who are in a position of thinking how much of this is just every child develops at a slightly different rate. Obviously, the percentage of time a child they've had their life when they're only 2, 3, 4 years old is only obviously 25% of their life or whatever that they've been able to do it, and they're obviously sort of growing all the time. So how does that work in terms of sort of recognizing something that you need, that people need support with, but not sort of frightening anybody or allowing that sort of natural progression of the fact that a child that's going into nursery or in an
Yeah,
early
sure.
years setting.
Firstly, I would say that early intervention is crucial. Um, early intervention is basically us identifying the need at an earlier stage and putting in the relevant interventions. And how we identify that early intervention is that we carry out the 2-year-old development checks at the setting. And normally, through the 2-year-old development check, they will score very low in their prime areas, which is social, emotional, physical development, and communication language. And that's normally a baseline that we work alongside with. So, for example, if they've scored very low in their prime areas, we will also ask for a separate development check from the health visitor. We'll make comparisons. So normally, if a child has got early identification, they will normally have scored low with a health visitor as well. And what we use is we use that as a baseline, and we arrange an early intervention meeting with the parents, identifying the need at an earlier stage. For example, for physical development, they will not be toilet trained, and they're not communicating, there have been pull-ups. And this could be from a range of age of 2, 3, 4, 5. So they don't have to be realistically a lower age. And communication language, majority of the time they'll be non-verbal. and they won't be making choices through using objects of reference, and they won't be even pointing majority of the time. And when it comes to social, they will always be self-directed. There'll be a lack of formal attachments with peers and staff. So what we do is that we speak to parents through building trust and a mutual understanding. And I think it's all about the fact is that you've got to understand from the parents' perspective as well. So what we do is we take the parents' views as well. How are they feeling? How is that child at home compared to the preschool? And I think that's normally a baseline that we start off with. And once the parents have accepted the fact that there is an identified need, and what we do is we work alongside the health visitor. So the health visitor will do a home visit. She will also have a further three-month development review from where we've identified the need. And what we'll do in place is that we'll apply for extra funding from the inclusion team to have that child in a 1-to-4 ratio. They'll have a differentiated timetable, differentiated curriculum, so they'll have more of a visual routine. And then also, sometimes we put them on a SEND support plan as well, depending on the identified need, whether it's a big need or a little need. And then again, the SEND support plan will have 3 targets that are reviewed every 12 weeks and monitored. And I think that's the basic identification stage.
And I think the way you've explained it so well there, it will give everybody a real sense of understanding, because I think that the things that you identified first of all are things that we'd all think, oh yeah, I can see that maybe it isn't as I would expect the development to be. The fact that you're talking about that whole community aspect, like you say, whether you've got health visitors, yourself and the parents all working together, then you get a sense of really we're all in it for the greater good.
And I think it's also the fact that because the 2-year-old development checks are not statutory, the parents are not obliged to have that 2-year-old development check. And I think what seems to be the case is that in majority of these children, a lot of these parents have missed the 2-year-old development check when they're coming to me. Right. So I've got children age range 3 and 4 who have never had a development check. So they've missed that check because it's not statutory. And I think one of the things that I would hope in the future is that the 2-year-old development check becomes a statutory legal guidance with the health visitors.
Yeah, and you can really see how important that would be, like I say, because everything that you mentioned there, you think, oh yes, I can see that's not what I would expect either from your own personal experience of other children, but also, like you say, the people that you may see around you from other families and groups and that kind of thing.
And what we also do is that we will support the parents by allocating a named health visitor. If that child has got identified needs, we would like that health visitor to be an active health visitor who would regularly support the same family and the same child, so they build that mutual trust and that relationship. And I think, again, it's the health visitors then identifying whether we need further referrals, such as a paediatrician or a speech and language. And I think the parents have that clarity that it's a number of professionals that are raising the same concerns, and we're working alongside the parent as well. So sometimes I think when it's just myself speaking to the parents, the parents are in a bit of a denial, but when you've got a multi-agency approach, the parents have a better understanding.
And how did you find it in terms of, obviously you're having to manage this, you've got this grand vision of actually wanting to create something which has this sort of such a child-centred sort of heartfelt approach. How did that feel different maybe from what you'd experienced before? Or how did you have to sort of implement that in a way that felt a little bit innovative, I should say, in terms of maybe other settings that you'd been involved in?
I think from my experience, I've got 26 years experience within the early years sector. And I became a SENCO, I'd say about 15 years ago. And I've realised that over the years, SEND has increased, not just nationally, but internationally as well. And what you found was that a lot of the local nurses and a lot of the local provision, firstly, there was lack of training in staff. We haven't got the specialised provision in mainstream schools. I'm also a SEND governor as well. And again, looking at it from the SEND perspectives, what I've realised is that the SENCO role is a huge role within itself. And the mainstream schools, a lot of the time, staff are not paid within the PVIs as much money for taking on these extra roles. And I think, again, one is that we're underpaid within PVI sectors. And secondly, it's the work that's involved in these roles. And thirdly, I think with myself is we're very passionate and we want to make a difference within our community. And I think one of the things that really draws me within this role is that I would like to make a difference. And it's that satisfaction that you get, which is very rewarding. And I think, again, what we do is that we look at where that child started and where he's finished. And when you look at where he started and where he's finished, and you've been able to put in the relevant interventions, you've identified the need, and the child's finally diagnosed, and the parents have got that relevant support, I think it's that satisfaction. And now we are supporting other local nurseries as well that do come in and see my provision. And we are basically showcasing our teaching of how we can support children with early identification, early interventions.
Yeah.
And it's, again, working as a close community and sharing our teaching methods.
Yeah, so let's have a little sort of look in terms of those sort of recognitions and those sorts of things. So sort of take us through sort of some of those sort of news ideas and like you say, some of those sort of awards and those achievements.
Sure. We had an email from South Korea, I think it was in 2025. And again, they were interested in our SEND provision because back in South Korea, the needs are not identified in an earlier stage. And it was found also that they haven't got enough trained staff. So they don't take on teaching assistants, they only take on qualified teachers. So we made comparisons. What we realised was that actually in the UK, the SEND process is mainly free, and the PVIs and the nurses are supporting that, whereas in Europe countries, the parents have to pay for the process as well, and that could be quite lengthy and expensive as well. And that was a great experience, international comparisons and looking at social policies. We've most recently received the SEND Birmingham Bronze Award as well, and we're now working on the silver. We've also received several other awards, such as the Entrepreneur of the Year, the CEO of the Year. Again, it's about the confidence that I've gained over the years and the difference that I've made, not just for the preschool, but within the community as well. I've been confident within our roles, and showcasing the impact has been huge. And it has been not just globally recognised, but internationally recognised as well.
I think
We've
that's
also
really
been
key,
featured in
isn't
the
it?
Birmingham Mail on numerous occasions. I've started to do podcasts, YouTube Live, again, sharing our experiences. And again, it's about sharing knowledge and gaining knowledge from each other.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about your experience in terms of, like, say, the preschool is attached to a school, which sort of has, I guess, does it have positives, does it have negatives? Do you feel like you've got that sort of sense of continuity into school?
The school that I'm basically, the early nurture preschool is situated on the Anglesey Primary School. We share the same site, but we're totally independent.
Right.
But the good thing about the school is that my children feed into their nursery, and then they feed also into their reception. So we've got a really good relationship, and also I'm their son governor. So again, it's about supporting each other, supporting each other's needs. And we know that the fact that the children are from the same community and they feed into the school, and we work together as a community, and we
And
make that difference. And I think that's valuable in itself, because the school have got their own nursery. They've also got this speech and language provision. It's the mainstream school. And again, when we identify the needs earlier, we can have those robust interventions through transitions, because we work alongside each other on the same site as well. And again, I think that's valuable in itself.
yeah, and do you see any differences in terms of air and reach? You spoke about the work you've sort of done internationally, and that kind of thing. But if you were sort of supporting a school, you say you're in Birmingham, for example, but if it was a school in Manchester, or maybe if you're going to go maybe to Scotland or something like that, are there sort of nuances that are different with those sort of different locations, or because you have the child at the centre of what you're doing, actually really a lot of it's the
Um,
same?
I I have visited a couple of nurseries in Birmingham, and there was a lot of differences in our approaches and how we teach and our understanding of the curriculum. Although we all follow the early years foundation stage, I think it's again about how we're all implementing it, how we're all understanding the curriculum, and how do we differentiate it. But I think in England, more or less, we are following the same curriculum. But whereas in Dubai, when I did an international tour and speaking to the director there, she was originally from England, and she highlighted the fact that the SEND provision is better in the UK compared to the Europe countries. Again, it's the cost. The parents have to pay for the process, and the parents have to lead the pathway. Whereas in the UK, the early years and the PVIs are supporting the parents with that pathway. So again, there was a difference there. And secondly, the same, I think the difference was the fact that they have qualified teachers and we have the early years specialists, we have TAs, we have we have various different roles to support these children. So again, I think looking at it from an international perspective, I would like to see and visit more nurseries internationally and nationally to gain a better understanding within the early years. But I would love to also be an early years spokesperson, um, to say and celebrate some of the wonderful work that we are doing, because I think often what gets highlighted in the media is the negatives.
Yeah.
What we don't really see is the positives. And I think what I would like to see is that more PVIs and the mainstream schools that are doing a fantastic work should be celebrated and showcased.
And I think, like I say, it can be something which someone takes away, which is like a real light bulb moment, and you
Yeah.
like say that there's a big something they can implement or a piece of advice which is going to change anything, but it might just be something really small that has a
Basic.
massive influence on one
Mm.
particular child or a couple of children, which is just as important. But like I say, it's only by being able to collaborate and share those things and have those conversations and meet like-minded people who want to grow, like I say, share the positives and the things that are working, that things can progress, I guess.
But I think I'm quite lucky in that sense because, like in the PVI, we work very closely with the speech and language therapists, with the paediatricians, the NDP, the Peri-Bar network. I've got my own inclusion team. I work a lot closer with the local nurseries. I've formed new networks internationally and nationally. And I think again with me is that it's not just the awards in itself that are a testament. I think you don't want to collect the awards. What you do want to do is gain your knowledge and form new networks that actually make a difference to the community and the children within your care. And I think that's important in itself, is that it's not about collecting awards. It's about it's about sharing your experiences and making sure that the impact is huge. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we are really adamant about, is that we want to continue delivering an outstanding education and make sure that we are as inclusive as we can be.
Yeah, I think that's really brilliantly put, because it's one of those things that, like I say, we want the child to get as best an education as they possibly can,
Yeah.
to learn in an environment which is really supportive. And you kind of hope that if you're able to deliver that, whether it's an outstanding rating, whether it's an award for
Or
something,
voting.
it comes as part of it. But it gives that sense of kind of, okay, we realize that
Mm.
actually other people, because of those things, may actually take note, want to listen. And like I say, if it's publicity, which for publicity itself is great, we can share this information and
Huge.
people will do it, then it's a
Yeah.
win-win-win, isn't it?
Definitely is. And I think a lot of it is that, I think with some nurseries, is that when you haven't got that network and you haven't got that support, and as a director and as a manager, it can be quite a lonely place because I think the pressure's on yourself. And it's not always you, it's the team. If the team are not productive, then it can give a different vision of the preschool. And I think with ourselves is that it's having a clear vision and making sure that the parents and service users are satisfied and the children are thriving and flourishing within your care. And I think one of the things that we do celebrate as a preschool is that we are very inclusive. We will differentiate the curriculum as much as we can. And we make sure that it's tailored to each child's learning. So it's not planned for all 30 children. So there's like separate intensive interaction time, there's separate attention bucket time. And there's also that inclusive time where all children can have their snacks together, they can play outside together. So you've got the child-centred approach, but you also got the adult-directed learning, and you also got a time where all the children can celebrate and be together and take lead of their own learning. So again, I think what works well is that you knowing your children, it's not about just planning a planning sheet and not understanding it. So I think with us is making sure that the activities that you've got set, you know that what the impact is, you know what their learning intentions are, and you know that whether it's made an impact or not. And again, it's reviewing your practice. And again, monitoring the children every term, and that's what we do. And I think the baselines are quite important. Although Ofsted don't look at data, what they do look at is that what did the child start with and what is he finishing with, and what's the understanding as a staff member, like how do you know that child? And again, it's about you explaining that this is where they started, this is what they're working on, and this is the next step. So again, it's you understanding and knowing the child rather than putting a piece of paper and planning for hours.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense. And I think also it just struck me there as well. You sort of talked about that progression as well. so much of what we're talking about here would also apply to a child who's 8 or 9 or 10 as well, because you like to say the idea of eating together but still needing that individual
Interaction.
learning, all of that kind of stuff as well. And I think we're much better at it now, like you say, when someone's been
Yeah,
identified or whether they've got the support they need. And it's very easy to forget that the average child, in inverted commas, needs just as much support in
mhm,
terms of, like you said, who are they? What are their interests? How do you communicate with them? How do they feel like they're at the heart of their world? And I think just the way that we're able to talk about these things across different age groups, different types of children, and take the best parts of education that we know from all the fantastic teachers and educators out there in all
yeah.
their roles is really key.
And I think what's important as well is that not every child is going to make exceptional progress or age-related progress. And I think with children with additional needs, what you've got to realise is that they are making some form of progress. And I think that's important to share with parents rather than saying they're not making age-related progress. It's identifying where they have made progress and highlight that and celebrate that. So I think that's very important in itself is identifying the small steps that they've made and the small progress. Because I think what's important is a lot of the time you say that this child's not making age-related progress, is really behind. But again, it's looking at, celebrating the fact that actually he's made really good progress in certain areas. And it's just focusing on the areas that needs a bit more support.
Yeah. And I think that's when the ongoing dialogue is so important, isn't it? Because it's not about, like I say, the exam results or what's
Yeah,
meant to be expected by something external. It's about who is this child, who is your child, what's important about them, and there is progress being made, and
yeah.
we can have the conversation about what that looks like and maybe what you expect that to look like based on your professional experience, but just knowing that we're able to support the best we possibly can.
And I think one of the things that are really important is that are the children able to self-regulate is that themselves? How are they regulating the feelings and their emotions? How are they making choices? And I think one of the things that we really focus on is that for children to begin to make choices, express themselves using objects of references, using flashcards, support their self-regulation by pointing to objects, pointing to signs, and then support it for children who are non-verbal to be able to communicate their needs and their preferences as well. So again, it's about you differentiating your daily routine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Shabnam, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this. I appreciate the fact that it's been one of those days for so
No,
many
you're most
people,
welcome.
and you especially, being in charge of everything. So, and I just think if there's a takeaway from anybody here, it really is that sense of individual needs, having complete conversations with everyone, and that sense of community. And by that I mean, like I say, the school, the teachers, the TAs, the parents, all of the different people that are able to support children, and feel like every day is not just progress, but it's another day of that child's life, and whatever we can do to help them in their individual journey is what we're here to do. And I think when we can have that collective message, then we're doing something important.
Definitely are. And I think the last thing I would like to say is that if parents do need that support, and they have got no support available, there is the local Birmingham offer. They can go on that website and all the information's on there, the different processes to follow, the kind of referrals that they're looking for, and even support for parents as well and courses. And you've also got the family hubs as well that
Right.
are delivering various different workshops and training methods as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And that particular website, is that related to the one we saw just a moment ago, or is it a different website?
Um, that's I think our website is uh, the this I don't where we've got the Birmingham Send Award.
Yeah,
That's part of the Birmingham local offer,
part of
and
that
the
local
Birmingham
offer.
local offer are part of Senna as well. So um, they are the local authority. They work for the Birmingham Sen. So there's a lot of facilities and guidance for parents when they're early identified, graduated approach,
Yeah,
the final diagnosis, the HCP, disability living allowance. There's all sorts of support available for parents.
fantastic. Thank you so much indeed. I'll let you get into the cool and finish your
Thank
day
you.
off.
It's been a very long day.
Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciate you taking the time to chat to us. So yeah,
You're
thanks so
most
much again.
welcome, Mark. Thank you for having me once again.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you spending the time, everything going on, and so just as we sort of wrap up on the live show, if you haven't already and you would like to just make sure that you subscribed, make sure you hit that notification bell, and we will be back with a live show very, very soon. Thanks so much for joining us. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.